Welcome to Washington Hospital Today, the program dedicated to sharing timely information about the community hospital that's been taking care of Washington Township Healthcare District residents since it opened in 1958. Washington Hospital Today is provided for the sole purpose of informing residents about healthcare topics and issues that have been covered during community forums, free health and wellness classes, or as part of educational sessions held during the district's open board meetings. This program is one more way that Washington Hospital helps empower you, the residents of the district, by providing information needed to make informed decisions about your health.
Today's presenter is Lorie Roffelsen. Lorie Roffelsen is a registered dietitian at the Washington Hospital Healthcare System. Lorie completed her studies at San Francisco State University. She is a prominent speaker for Washington Hospital's community outreach educational programs.
The class tonight is called Get Your Child's Plate in Shape, and we're going to have some fun activities. First, we're going to do a little bit of lecture to give you sort of a background, and then you're going to use some of the information you learned from the lecture to do some fun activities in the back of the room. There's a lot of nutrition challenges for today's families. For some, when I was a kid, we rode our bicycle all day long in the neighborhood. We walked around. We were out till it got dark out, and times have changed a little bit. Kids maybe are not outside playing as many hours a day as they used to, and so for some, they're not getting as much physical activity unless they're maybe in an organized sport like soccer or softball. Because of our busy lifestyles, sometimes we have irregular meal timing or meal planning. We maybe get home really late, we have to grab food on the way home, we're not eating regular meals, sometimes we're just kind of eating on the run. So it makes it challenging to maybe eat as healthy as we would like to. And so there's a lot of time pressures. There's more, especially in the Bay Area, it takes dual incomes, both parents out of the home working to make a living, and so there's less people at home to be cooking and planning. So it also takes planning to eat healthy sometimes. One of the other challenges that we see is that there's been an increased frequency and sometimes portion size of higher calorie or calorie dense food, sometimes from fat and sugar. So that's things like sweets, fast food, what we call maybe junk food. And so those foods can have a place in the diet, but it just depends how often you're eating them, that it can sometimes be an issue in families. So what we're going to talk about tonight, give you some guidance on eating behaviors that will help you promote good nutrition, discuss some of the nutrients that are important to consume, especially for you kids in your growing years, and where we can find those in the diet, go over some of the healthy eating and exercise recommendations, and then we're going to have some fun activities at the back that are going to help you kids practice some of the information that you learned tonight. Hope you get excited about cooking, maybe trying some new fruits and vegetables, get to practice your math skills, doing some measuring. So let's talk first about healthy eating behaviors, because that can be as important as eating healthy as healthy eating behaviors. So I'm going to give you examples of what those are. There's an author, Ellen Satter. She's actually also a registered dietitian, and she's a social worker. She's done a lot of research and a lot of writing in the area of child nutrition, and she has a lot of good tips and guidance for families on healthy eating habits and healthy eating behaviors that you try to promote in the home. And this is a quote from one of her books. The parent, so she says, division of responsibility. The parent is responsible for what, when, and where. So what you're going to eat, when, so what time, and where that's going to happen. And the child is responsible for how much they're going to eat and whether they're going to eat. And sometimes that's frustrating for parents because you want them to eat sometimes and they don't want to eat, right? But Ellen Satter would say, if they don't want to eat, they don't have to eat. So that's something to think about. She also says the parent's job is to choose and prepare the food. So we're the gatekeepers. We're the ones that make the options available to our kids. And it's our job also to try to provide regular meals and snack times. And that can be challenging at times. So encourage your child to participate in meal prep. That gets them excited maybe about trying new foods. It can make them more open to trying a food they haven't had before. Make eating times pleasant. She says this is important just so children eat well and maybe they're not ending up refusing to eat at the meal. She also says don't let children graze on food or beverages between meals and snacks because they'll end up maybe ruining their appetite for that main meal that you're preparing. So if you, and that's why meal timing, especially with very small children, is important. If you give them a snack too close to a mealtime, that might ruin their appetite for the main meal that they're going to have. But for very little kids, they need that snack between meals to get in enough calories. And she says it's okay to balance occasional higher fat or higher sugar foods with healthy choices as well. So it doesn't have to be, she's not extreme as far as healthy foods. She says there can be a balance there. She also says in her book, it's more important to eat as a family, whether the meal is just a pizza from takeout. You all sit down and eat together. She says that's more important than even what you're eating. So talking about eating, one thing you can do, and this is something that even adults and so parents in the room, this is also helpful for you to think about, is practicing mindful eating. Meaning when you're eating, you're in the moment, you're thinking about your food, you're thinking about how much you're eating, you're not distracted by the computer or television or video games or cell phone or anything else. So what can help develop mindful eating is practicing, again, regular meal timing and snacks, turning off distractions while you're eating. So turning off the television, not eating in front of the computer, not eating in front of the television. So these are good habits. If and as I talk about different things, you can decide, is that something maybe we should try to work on in our house? And you can, decide, okay, if we're going to go home, try to work on this area. Try to seat the child at the table for meals and snacks, especially for little kids. Maybe they want to run around, they want to come back and forth, but try to have them sit and eat. And again, pay attention to what they're eating. For kids who are kind of hyper or amped up before meals and they won't sit down and eat, try planning a quiet activity like coloring or reading right before mealtime so they calm down, relax, and they might eat better for you. And again, try to encourage positive social interaction during mealtime. So even though you may have the family together and you think this is a good time to bring up the bad grade you got in social studies or ask, why didn't you clean your room today? That's not the type of topic you really want to bring up at mealtime. Bring up positive topics, enjoyable things to discuss as a family, and then bring up the dirty room later after you eat. Also, as parents, we should be role models. So eat with your child, model healthy eating behaviors and habits. Don't force your child to clean his plate, because what that can force them to do is overeat. So when they feel full, they should stop, and you should let them stop eating. Children have an inner satiety cue that tells them to stop when they're full. And you can kind of override that and make it difficult for them to kind of know when they're full if you have them eat beyond that point when they are full. So As much as you might not want to waste food, it's better that they don't overeat or clean their plate if they don't want to. That's one of the reasons limiting juice is recommended, because it's very easy to drink a lot of calories from juice, but it doesn't, your body doesn't register all those extra calories and say, oh, I'm full, I just drank 300 or 400 calories. It doesn't trigger any satiety in a person. So that's we're going to talk more about juice later. But teach hand washing before meals and encourage trying new foods. So I was talking earlier this week with our director, Kim, and she read recently it takes about sometimes 6 times tasting a food before it's accepted sometimes by kids. So if you've tried something once or twice or 3 times and decided you didn't like it, maybe give it another chance, and maybe there's something here tonight you want to try for the first time. And lastly, don't reward or punish with food. So if you tell your child, if you finish your vegetables, I'm going to let you have ice cream for dessert, then you're making ice cream a reward, and you're giving them the message that there's something really wrong with vegetables because I'm getting a reward for eating my vegetables. So you can have that ice cream, but it shouldn't be because it's a reward for eating something else. So try not to label foods that way. Okay, now let's start talking about foods. So when I was in high school, we still had the 4 food groups, which were, so this was a simpler time before we had some of the other images that came along. But we had our dairy group, we had our grain or bread cereal group, we had fruits and vegetables, and we had meats. So it was pretty basic, the basic 4 groups. But the USDA felt that the country needed more guidance on portions and foods, and so we ended up having lots of different images, these pyramids. The one in the upper left-hand corner was used for a long time, and then more recently we had that pyramid that's in the middle. And they're a little bit abstract as far as the information. The whole point of these is to give you guidance on what food groups are important to include, and how much you should be trying to eat from each of the food groups. But how many of you think these are kind of complicated? Yes? Yes. So I guess the USDA thought so too, so they decided to go to a more simple image, and they went to My Plate. And I used this in one of my daughter's classrooms last year, and I could see just the instant understanding on all the kids' faces. It's like very simple to just absorb right away. They understand the different groups. And if it's on this picture, the idea is it should be included in the diet. That the food groups here are nutritious. Each one has a reason for being there. And we're going to talk about what foods actually are in each of those groups. Some of them I'm sure you can guess. Fruits, some of you probably know a lot of fruits. Others you might wonder what are in those groups, so we're going to talk about those. First though, I'm going to talk about water. So water is not on that My Plate diagram, but I read something recently from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, a statistic that among children, approximately 1 in 4 does not drink any water on any given day. So kids are either running around dehydrated, or they're drinking, instead of water, maybe they're drinking a lot of juice or soda or sports drinks, or hopefully they're drinking some milk in there. But the goal is to try to increase consumption of water as to stay hydrated. It is supposed to increase cognitive ability, and it doesn't have any calories. So if you have this as a beverage on the side, it is a way to also reduce calories overall in your meal planning. So if you don't drink enough water, or if you don't drink much water now, try to drink more water every day. Make sure you drink some every day. Okay, so now let's start on our group. And the first one I was going to talk about were vegetables, because this is an area where we seem to be falling down. We're not eating enough vegetables. And the National Fruit and Vegetable Alliance came out recently, and they gave us a grade of a D for children's intake of vegetables. That although they've had some slight increases over the last 5 years, it's still pretty low. And that intake of only more than 92%, I think was the number of kids who did not eat enough of the recommended amounts of vegetables every day. So this is an area where we need to try to increase. And for kids, it's a matter of talking to your parents maybe, and if you like vegetables, make sure your mom or dad knows what vegetables you like and what vegetables you will eat in the house. And then also be willing to try maybe something new that you have not eaten yet and see if you like it. So why are vegetables important? They're high in a lot of nutrients, a lot of vitamins and minerals. They give us fiber, and they're low in calorie. So of all the groups that we're talking about tonight, vegetables are the lowest. So choose a variety. If you only ate peas every day, you're only going to get the nutrients that peas have. But if you eat peas sometimes and broccoli sometimes and occasionally green beans and sometimes carrots, you're going to get a variety of nutrients from all of those vegetables. Now, how much do we need? We need about 2.5 cups a day. So vegetables include dark green leafy vegetables. I'm pointing out some of the ones that are higher in nutrients, like folate, broccoli, spinach, kale, romaine lettuce, watercress. So those dark green leafy vegetables have a lot of nutrients. The orange vegetables, like carrots and sweet potatoes, pumpkin, and right now winter squash, it's in the fall season, are very high in vitamin A. And beans and peas. So actually for my plate, it's interesting, it's one of those foods, beans and peas, we count it as a protein, and we also count it as a vegetable for this type of learning. And they're very high in a good source of protein. And then we have starchy vegetables that we categorize. They're a little bit higher calorie than like your dark green leafy vegetables. So potatoes, corn, green peas, we call those starchy vegetables. And those also count here. So just eat a little bit of all of those if you can. Okay, so one of the recommendations is make half your plate fruits and vegetables. So we've talked about vegetables, now fruits. And if you look at the plate, are all those triangles the same size? No, they're not. So the ones that are a little bit bigger, we're supposed to eat a little bit more of. The protein group's a little smaller. We don't need as much protein as we need fruits and vegetables. So kind of think about that too when you're putting your plate together. So fruits, just like vegetables, they have a lot of nutrients, a lot of vitamins and minerals. They're low in calorie, but not as low as vegetables typically. And they give us energy. So you know how fruits are sweet for the most part? That's the carbohydrate or the natural sugar that's in those. And we're supposed to eat about 2 cups a day. Now if you have younger kids, they're expected to eat less. So their portions would be smaller than that. And if you go to choosemyplate.gov, it's the website that's at the bottom of the diagram. You can actually put in information and get a tailored meal plan according to your age and your child's height and weight and all of that. So you can do that to get a more specific amount and portions for them. So I talked a little bit about juice before, and I'm going to say it again. Try to choose whole fruit more often than drinking juice. And all these different kinds of fruit count in the fruit group. You can have fresh, frozen, dried, canned. It all gives you a serving of fruit. Now, potassium-rich fruits are good to try to include because, especially for kids who are very active in sports, losing electrolytes, running outside, you want to replace that potassium. So these are a good source of potassium: oranges, prunes, bananas, cantaloupe, and honeydew. So that's fruits. Now, a little more about juice. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends, they have some specific concerns about juice consumption. And so they say, don't even introduce it into diets of infants who are younger than 6 months. And if you're going to give it to a toddler, do not put it in a bottle or a sippy cup, something that they'll walk around with all day and kind of sip from, or at bedtime. And that's because of the concern that juice, if it's in constant contact with their teeth, it can erode their tooth enamel. So just give them juice. If they're going to have juice, they should have it at the table, drink it, and then that's it. They shouldn't be walking around with it and kind of sipping on it all day. Now, if you have a child who's age 1 to 6, they should only have about 4 to 6 ounces of juice per day, or less. If you want to just give them whole fruit, that's even better. You don't have to give them juice because they can get the same nutrients from fruit. Now, if you think about drinking juice, you can drink a lot of calories from juice without thinking about it, where if you sat down and ate a piece of fruit, that's going to fill you up because there's fiber that's in that fruit. Okay, and if you're a little bit older, 7 to 18, you can have a little bit more juice, but it should still be limited to 8 to 12 ounces per day. Now, a little more about oral health. Just keep in mind that all carbohydrate foods, like crackers or fruit or raisins, they all have potential to feed bacteria in the mouth. And that can lead to, again, plaque formation and erosion of our teeth enamel and cavities. So we don't want that to happen. So try not to snack constantly, because every time you snack and put food in your mouth, you're kind of getting that bacteria going again in the mouth. So snack, and then a good thing to do is either brush and floss after eating. That removes plaque and the food particles. Or at least rinse out, drink a glass of water and kind of rinse down any food particles that are in the mouth after the snack. So you can also do that. Because if you're at school and you've had your snack, you probably don't have a chance or want to go brush your teeth, right? So at least drink some water. And also think about, because when we get to the dairy group, it's because it provides some important nutrients like calcium and phosphorus and vitamin D, which are anti-cavity nutrients. They help with bone health, and fluoride. And I know in Fremont we have fluoridated water, so you don't have to add fluoride or buy, unless if you drink exclusively bottled water, then you might want to talk to your dentist and see if you need any additional fluoride. Okay, now the purple group, so proteins provide the building blocks or amino acids for cells, cell formation, hormones, muscle, bone, and skin. So they're very important to have enough protein, but we don't probably need to eat as much as the typical American sometimes eats too much protein, or the source of the protein might be kind of high in saturated fat. So we have to also think about eating leaner types of protein most of the time. So you can see protein provides a lot of important nutrients, iron, which our body needs iron to make red blood cells, B vitamins, vitamin E, protein, and magnesium. The amount that you need to eat, it depends on, again, your age and your size and whether you're a man or a woman. So the typical amount is about 5.5 ounces per day for someone who eats 2,000 calories a day, which would probably be maybe a little bit more than like the children in the room need, but maybe the adults in the room would eat about that much protein. And an ounce equivalent of protein would be like 1 egg or 1 ounce of meat, or poultry or fish, or a tablespoon of peanut butter, or a 1/4 cup of dry beans, or 1/2 ounce of seeds. So in this group, in addition to animal protein like beef and chicken and fish, beans, seeds, peanut butter, eggs also are counted as protein. Now, because iron is sometimes, it's a mineral of concern because although it is in foods, and I'll show you the list of foods you can get iron from, our absorption of it is not very good from food sources. So we might absorb maybe, a good amount would be 30% of the iron from the food we eat. So there's 2 types of iron. There's heme iron, which is primarily from animal sources, and the non-heme iron, which is more from grains and vegetable sources. And our body absorbs better the iron from, typically from animal sources, or the heme iron. But you can also get it from fortified cereals and bread products. And then of course some of these animal proteins, prune juice, tomato paste, and tomato puree. There's a lot of beans that are sources of iron, lentils, spinach and Swiss chard, and chickpeas. So a tip for you, if you include a vitamin C rich food at the same meal where you have food that has iron in it, that helps your body absorb more of the iron from that food. So for example, in the morning, if you have an iron fortified cereal and at the same meal you have some sliced oranges, the vitamin C in the orange is going to help you, it's going to enhance the absorption of that iron that's in the cereal. So you can try to do that. Okay, the grain group. The grains are things like breads, cereals, rice, tortillas. Whole grains would be like brown rice, wild rice, buckwheat, bulgur, oatmeal, whole wheat. This group is important because it gives us energy, it gives us fiber, helps fill us up, and it provides vitamins and minerals. So any food that is made from a grain, so like wheat bread or tortilla or grits, is called a grain product. So it's a product of that grain. So when you're shopping for whole grains, one of the messages from my plate is try to make at least half your choices per day whole grain choices. So they don't have to all be whole grain, but if you can maybe have whole wheat bread for lunch, and if you have maybe oatmeal in the morning, you may have reached your goal right there. So it's not hard to do. The portion or the amount of grains that each individual needs, again, is based on age and energy level. So for more specific amounts, I mean, the average is about 6 servings a day, spread out across the day, but it does depend on your age. So you can look at the website again, and actually I do have some meal plans here for preschool age and for older. So if you want to get kind of an idea of how many servings per day to eat. And you may hear the term whole grain a lot. So what is a whole grain? So a whole grain is the grain, whether it's wheat or rice, that has not been refined or processed at all. So it still contains that outer hull, the bran, which protects the seed from the elements. It has the germ inside, which is a source of phytochemicals, which there's a lot of still research going into all the different phytochemicals in foods, but we know that they are active and they protect us from some diseases, and they have antioxidant properties, some of them. There's also B vitamins and vitamin E. The part that we eat, if it's a processed grain, so let's say you eat white bread, you're eating the endosperm, which is kind of the soft, it's just part of the grain. But when they get to the endosperm, they've stripped away all those other good parts, the bran and the germ. So then they will enrich it. So if you buy enriched wheat flour that's been processed, they've added back some of the B vitamins and some of the things that were taken out, but they can't replace those phytochemicals. So it's not the same as eating a whole grain that started that way. So that's why we encourage you to try to eat more whole grains. There's been a lot of research looking at what whole grains can do for us. And people who eat more whole grains have reduced risk for coronary artery disease, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers. It can assist with weight management because you may also be eating more fiber. And again, the dietary guidelines say try to make half your daily grain servings whole grain. Okay, last but not least, dairy. And the primary nutrients, the reason we push dairy products is because they are an excellent source of calcium and vitamin D. They also have protein, and so they help promote bone health. And in your growing years, your bones are still growing, so you need a lot of calcium, and you need vitamin D because that helps move the calcium into the bones. So you need to consume about 3 cups of fat-free or low-fat milk per day to reach your calcium goals typically. Now, for children who are younger, you only need about 2 cups per day to reach the calcium goals. And on the next slide, I think I've got some of the numbers. What are your calcium goals based on your age? So you can see as you start hitting your preteen and teenage years, your needs for calcium really go up. So you want to maximize your bone growth, maximize your bone strength, and so you want to try to get as close to those calcium goals as you can. Now, if you don't like dairy products, there are a lot of other foods that have calcium. And a lot of times pediatricians will recommend also maybe a calcium supplement if a child really doesn't like dairy products and doesn't like some of these other foods that are sources of calcium, or don't want to eat the fortified foods. Because you can get calcium fortified juice, you can get calcium fortified cereals. If you eat tofu, that's often processed with calcium, so there's calcium in that. DGLV stands for dark green leafy vegetables. So some of those that I listed when we were talking about vegetables are also good sources of calcium. So if you're a vegetarian, you can actually get your calcium. Let's say you're a vegan, you don't even eat dairy products. There are a lot of foods to choose from that are sources of calcium without having to go to the dairy products. Now, have any of you heard the term nutrient dense before? No? Some of you have? Okay. So if a food is nutrient dense, it means for the calories in it, it has a lot of nutrients compared to maybe a non-nutrient dense food that has the same calories. So to give you an example, let's say we're comparing a cup of milk and a cup of cola. And the reason the MyPlate recommendations say choose fat-free or low-fat milk is because the calcium and the vitamin D and the protein are the same in the lower fat, but you're not getting all the saturated fat. So it's nutrient dense and healthier for you. So when we compare milk and cola, so we've got 100 calories in a cup of 1% low-fat milk, 300 milligrams of calcium, so that's a lot of calcium. You have protein, vitamin D, and vitamin A, all in that cup of milk. Now, in a cup of cola, that's not the whole can, because a can is 12 ounces. So just 8 ounces of cola is 100 calories. You only get 6 milligrams of calcium and just a trace amount of iron. So there's not a lot of nutrients for the same amount of calories. So you see, you want to try to choose foods that give you a lot of bang for the buck. Wanted to give you a visual, because that MyPlate doesn't have food on it, right? It's just colors. So I wanted to give you a visual, and this is from the website, myplate.gov. This is how they translate their image into real food. So if you had a tomato, carrot, celery, and onion in your spaghetti sauce, so that's vegetables there, plus the broccoli. So you've got lots of vegetables on the plate, and it's over a whole grain spaghetti, so that is your grain. And there's also meat in the sauce, so that is your protein. So you've got all the groups covered on the plate. And then on the side is roasted pears, so you have a fruit for dessert and a glass of milk. So you've got your dairy covered as well. So that's an example. And there's actually recipes on the website too. So if any of these sound good, you can go to the website and print them off and try them. So here's another example. They've got they've got fish. So you want to try to have fish more often because it's a lean protein. And half the plate is vegetables. They have green beans and potatoes. And then on the side there's some fruit. There's a fruit and yogurt parfait. So you've got your dairy and fruit covered there as well. This dish is a sweet and sour pork. I don't know if you can see, there's rice under the sweet and sour pork, so that's your grain. Then you've got a salad that's making up about half the plate. And then you also have, looks like pineapple and peppers in that sweet and sour pork, so there's more vegetables there. So it's not a lot of protein. Protein's probably about a quarter of the plate if you were going to separate it all out. And then on the side they have non-fat frozen yogurt. So you've got your dairy covered as well. I think I've got one more here. Okay, here's a nice Waldorf salad with chicken in it, and it has apples and grapes, and it's on a bed of lettuce. So it's not all divided up like the My Plate, but it covers all the groups that are suggested trying to cover. You've got a piece of bread there for the grain, and there's protein in the salad and fruits and vegetables. And then on the side they have a blueberry lime yogurt. So those are some examples of how to kind of apply it at home. And you might have your own cultural foods, your own favorite family foods, and you can kind of figure out how they would work with the My Plate. So the whole point of the My Plate image is just to give consumers and families guidance on how to meal plan. So hopefully that gives you some good ideas. Okay, and then I'm going to finish with exercise, since that's part of being healthy as well. And adults, we exercise, right? We go to the gym or we walk or we exercise. Kids play. So always make sure that it's fun for them, whatever they're doing to stay active. And there's some examples here. Some of these are silly things. Some are fun or more active. Some are organized sports. Some are things you can do inside on a rainy day, like do a treasure hunt or just listen to music and dance. So try to, be active. The recommendation for kids is to be active about 60 minutes every day, and for adults it's 30 minutes per day. So if you're doing running around at recess at school and running around at PE, you might be getting in that 60 minutes, but depending on what you do with your time at school, you might need to do a little bit more at home or try to do some fun activities after school. But you can see you might be getting in this exercise or play without even thinking about it, just by running around in your house and having fun. So that's how it should be. It should be fun. Anyway, so that is my talk. And I hope it gave you some good ideas and gave you some things to think about, what you might want to take home, and if you feel like there's something that you can try to do it at your own home.